I so admire authors, all of them. Even if I don't personally like what they've written, they still did it. They finished a piece of writing. They took the risk and dedicated the time to something that could have turned out to be nothing, you know? And that takes courage and dedication and discipline and anyone want to send a little of that my way? The first story I remember writing was inspired by the Adopt a Highway signs. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I don't know if they do this anywhere else in the world, but in America you can adopt a stretch of highway. I suppose that means you're in charge of keeping it clean, picking up litter, maybe beautifying the area. It can't mean that you're in charge of actually repairing the highway. And it seems that in return, you get your name on a sign. Woo! So as you're driving across America, you'll see these signs on the side of the road that have like a business logo or maybe a family name. Sometimes they're in memoriam of someone. Or you'll see signs that just say, adopt a highway, because nobody's done it yet for this stretch of road. How sad. It needs a family. Every summer when I was a kid, we would all pile into our big old family van and road trip the 7 hours from Texas to Arkansas to visit my grandparents. One year, I noticed the Adopt a Highway signs. I asked about them for the first time and got the general explanation that I just gave you. I'm bad at placing memories in my early life, but I would assume that I was maybe 7 or 8. I just had to be old enough to physically know how to write. When do kids learn how to write? The concept of Adopt a Highway inspired my little 7 or 8-year-old brain to write a story. I can quite viscerally remember sitting on the floor of my grandmother's room, which she always vacated for the week so that all 5 of her granddaughters could pile into it, scribbling this story into a notebook. It was about an older woman who was on her own at this point in her life. No kids, no grandkids, no partner anymore. She adopts a stretch of highway and pours herself into making it beautiful. She's always out there in her big sun hat, picking up trash and planting flowers. People start to recognize her as they drive by. They wave to her and she always waves back with a big smile. She becomes a local legend, the Highway Lady. And then she dies and they name the highway after her in memory. It was a short story. Eventually I should start exploring the notebooks from my childhood and see if I can find this story in there. I still have all of them. It's just kind of a big job because there are over 50. I wrote a lot before the age of 18. Like y'all. So much. And all in pencil, on paper, because I didn't start typing stuff out until college, really. That's when I got my first laptop, my first personal computer. Before that, there was only one family computer in our office that all of us shared. Not only did you have to barter for your share of time on it, but also nothing was private. Absolutely nothing. By the time I finished high school, not only had I filled 50 notebooks with ideas and short stories and personal musings and excerpts from stories that I would never finish, I had also written 2 novels, like completely 100,000 plus words, full-sized novels. And I am sure that they're very bad. I haven't reread them in years and years and years, and I say that with all the self-love possible. I guarantee they are so bad. And I'm also so proud of myself for writing them. But I had time. I had so much time and so little to fill that time with. You know Rapunzel's song Entangled, When Will My Life Begin? That is what my whole childhood felt like to me. I watched hours go by, days go by, years go by when I could have been doing things, in theory. I could have been learning more, trying more, experiencing more, heck, even working more. But in reality, I couldn't. I didn't feel like I was allowed. In many cases, I actually wasn't allowed. Writing was one of the best options for how to spend my free hours and days. It felt like investing in my future. It felt like starting a career. I could write a novel right then in high school, and it could end up being published. In theory, I could start my future as a writer in my hot pink butterfly chair with a number 5 mechanical pencil and a college-ruled notebook. It felt slightly like taking control, which was a very rare feeling for me in my childhood. But also, I had time. I had no job, or really I had very, very part-time jobs, because babysitting started quite early. I had no bills. I only took a couple hours each day to do the entirety of my schoolwork. I only had one very light extracurricular activity, 2 hours of ballet class every week, and I had no social life. There were hours to spare. I could sit there staring at a page for 30 minutes, waiting for the right words to hit me, because there was nothing better I could be doing instead. And I don't think that's a feeling I can ever regain as an adult. There is always something better I could be doing now. These days, I struggle to allow myself time to write. And by these days, I mean like the last 12 years or so. It feels frivolous. It feels like a luxury that I cannot afford because nothing is as precious and high in worth to me as my time, other than, my human rights. To sit in complete silence staring at a page feels an awful lot like doing nothing, no matter how actively my brain is seeking words, or imagining stories, or scraping together bits of ideas from the dusty corners where I stashed them years ago. So much of writing is not physically writing. So much of writing is just thinking. And I'm always thinking. I can think while I'm embroidering, or while I'm sewing a dress, making a thumbnail, or editing a video, so why not multitask like I so love to do? Get it all done at one time. Knock some real work off your list, be productive, and just think on the side, right? Only, of course, wrong. Sure, I might come up with the first line of a script, or start telling myself a new story while in the middle of so-called real work. It happens. But not very much. The thinking I'm doing while working is not the same kind of thinking as the thinking I'm doing while writing. There are two different stages of writing for me: the inspiration stage and the getting it done stage. As a kid, or as a teenager mainly, both of these stages were present and accessible simultaneously. I came up with new ideas constantly, and I pretty much always had the time to devote to writing them down, expanding them, turning them into full-length novels when desired. But as an adult, I'm not sure I've ever experienced both stages at the same time again. And quite often I'm experiencing neither. Do you want to come here? Come here.
Happy break.
You can do it. Come here. Hi. Hi, my baby. Oh, such a tall boy. No, you're not going to stick around? Okay, bye. The inspiration stage has been more frequent. College was a very inspirational time for me. I was being creative on a daily basis. I was frequently inspired with new ideas. But I didn't have a lot of free time around my full class schedule, 3 to 4 part-time jobs, and show rehearsals to actually devote to developing those ideas. So I ended up with a lot of chunks. Titles, lines, paragraphs, maybe a few pages here and there. Notebooks full of randomness, only now the notebooks were both physical and digital. The randomness was a lot harder to keep organized. I also experienced big inspirational stages while working on cruise ships and while traveling solo. During my cruise contracts, I was again pretty lacking in free time because we worked 7 days a week. But I had abundant brain space because work was repetitive and boring as crap. Most days I had to sit through a 45-minute show run. No audience, no performers or anything, just running the lights and the sound and the automation to make sure that everything was working properly, during which I had maybe 3 quick tasks I had to do. Twice each night, I had to sit backstage in the dark by myself for 30 minutes while the audience filled for the shows. There was a lot of, you have to be here, but you're not really doing anything in that job. So I read books on my phone, I did embroidery, I did a lot of thinking. I again came up with a lot of ideas, a lot of bits as I call them, chunks of dialogue, or a description, or a character for what could be a longer story. I just never really had the time to sit down in a distraction-free place with my laptop and actually develop those bits into stories. A similar thing happened on my first solo travels, especially while road tripping Iceland and Scotland. I remember walking the 2 miles from the road to that famous plane wreck in Iceland, typing on my phone the whole way because some idea had struck me while I was driving and I needed to get it all down before I lost it. Good thing the ground was flat the whole way there. Any other hike in Iceland and that would have been very risky. There was a block of time, starting in 2020 of course, where I didn't travel much, and I sort of entered a dry spell, the longest period I've ever had without an inspiration stage. It was only when I spent some time in France a while ago, mostly by myself, that I felt that rush of ideas again. I felt myself plunged into a vat of inspiration. My brain lit up because for the first time in ages, it had time. Walking and driving are great thinking times. Still not quite the same level as just sitting there staring at a page. You may not be able to fully eke out a scene and iron out the wrinkles and get the words right. But it's the perfect mix of higher physical activity with lower focus requirements that allows my brain to muse. It's musing time. Sitting in front of a computer staring at the page is not musing time. I would never sit down at my computer and expect to have new ideas. It's too rigid, it's too focused, it's too structured. There needs to be some level of distraction or multitasking, I suppose, to best allow musing to happen. But there can't be too much. I can't be watching TV or figuring out how to piece together a garment at the sewing machine or editing photos. These all require too much focus, too much brain activity to leave room for musing. But strolling through a museum or garden, great musing time. Especially since art, nature, and people watching are all very inspirational. Showering, great musing time. Only if you come up with anything good, you have to hold on to it until you can grab your phone and write it down. And hoo boy, ideas can escape my brain at lightning speed when I turn my metaphorical back and start shampooing my hair. And driving. Driving is my best musing time. Not driving for 10 minutes, not going to the store, not even sitting in half an hour of traffic. Solo road trip driving is a special kind of inspiration stage. It's hours and hours of being alone with myself and my thoughts, with just enough activity and focus required outside of myself, the act of safely driving, to keep everything rolling. I think it drastically helps, at least in the world of non-fictional inspiration, that this is the only place that I will talk through my musings out loud. I've never felt much of a need to talk through my fictional ideas out loud, although theoretically, it could help. Anyway, while in France, I filled a small notebook. I piled my notes app high with bits, lines, stories, ideas, some of the best writing that I have done in a long time. I wasn't working. I mean, I was kind of working because I made videos about the trip, which is my job, but I wasn't working in the same way that I work when I'm at home, so creativity was flowing in a very different way. I was also experiencing a whole plethora of complicated emotions about being in another country, so that definitely played into it. I even took a nap once because I was so tired, and then I had this really weird dream that turned into this strange story when I wrote it down, and I remember being like, damn, would I have more ideas or would I write more if I took naps? I don't know, because I don't have time for naps in my regular life. I'm not a napper. But despite writing some good-sized chunks, I still stayed in the inspiration stage. I didn't have time to enter the getting it done stage. I was trying to see as much of Paris and the Loire Valley and Normandy as possible while I could. In fact, just trying to keep all of the random bits that I wrote while wandering through a castle or sitting in a garden or on the subway organized was more than I had time for on that trip. I learned for this past year's trip to England that I just have to let the notes app overflow and organize it all when I get home. It took months to finally get all the bits in their proper places. There is only one time since high school that I have entered the getting it done stage of writing: the pandemic. Matt and I moved to New York City in March of 2020, arriving quite literally the day that the city shut down. We spent months alone in our little Brooklyn apartment, unemployed. I had never been unemployed for this long, and between baking like crazy and embroidering so much and trying to get my Etsy shop up and running and applying for every job I could find, I had time to sit on the couch for hours and days even, with little to no distraction, and write. In high school, I had written novels, but in my late 20s, I was now focused on writing for TV. I saw potential there. I saw the possibility that I could be good at it, and I had some ideas that had been percolating for years, that had been scribbled out in bits during all those inspiration stages. And for the first time, I had nothing better to do than sit down and write them fully, completely, from start to finish, or theme song to credits, you could say in this instance. And I did. I wrote several pilots, even entered some in TV writing contests and got feedback on one of them. I applied for some writing fellowships and jobs where I had to send in my scripts, and nothing came of it. It's a very difficult industry to break into when you have no connections and no history there. And then we moved again, and I started doing YouTube and working other jobs, and that brief period of getting it done fizzled out because I no longer had time to dedicate to something that was going nowhere. I was no longer willing to spend my precious hours when I would quite probably get nothing in return. That's the frivolity of it all. Writing is one of those careers that kind of requires you to put in massive amounts of time before you actually start the career, you know? You don't get hired to write in any field or way without having first written. To get hired as a TV writer, you have to have written some scripts. To get your movie script optioned, you have to have written it. To get a novel published, well, you get the picture. Writing comes first, in most cases. If someone is selling something they haven't written yet, it is likely because they've already had success writing something else. In the world of fictional writing, at least. Nonfiction is a whole other beast. And for me, it was this catch-22, because ever since I entered adulthood, my main focus had been working, supporting myself, making a living, and I couldn't do that with writing. Or at least I couldn't do that with writing until I devoted a lot of time to writing, but I was devoting a lot of time to earning a paycheck, which I couldn't earn from writing because I didn't have time to write. To sit down for a full day and say, I'm going to write today, is such a luxury for me. Because the reality is, you might not. You can devote an entire day to writing and come out the other side with virtually nothing to show for it. And that's just the nature of the craft, especially at the beginning when you are learning and growing and developing a writing practice. That's just something you have to accept. And that is a tough one for me. So I never allowed myself the time necessary to actually develop the pile of ideas and bits that I have into full works. I just keep adding to the pile year after year and never taking anything out. It's a big pile now. But if I'm entirely honest with myself, it wasn't just the lack of a paycheck that kept me from devoting time to writing. It didn't need to be my job for me to get it done. I've turned hobbies into work by becoming a YouTuber. For better or for worse, it's worked for me. In sharing the things that I make, I justify the making of them to myself, which is not really a good thing. Like, that's not a behavior to imitate, kids. That's an issue I need to work on. I spent so long not only needing to earn a living, but also trying to make up for the lost time of my childhood when I felt like I could have been doing more, when I wanted to be doing more and instead felt wildly out of control of my time. Now I am in control of my time, and I over-control it in this desperate desire to earn back the first 18 years or to compensate for it in some way. I have trouble letting myself do things just for fun and enjoyment and pleasure. Everything needs to have a purpose. I have even used the reasoning of I want to write for TV someday to justify watching TV for myself. It's research! And one of the main reasons that I started making YouTube videos was to justify the hobbies that I wanted to pick up and try and dive into. If I just embroider, then it's a hobby. But if I sell patterns and make tutorials and maybe earn a little bit of money from it, then now it's a job. Now it's worth my time. If I just start sewing myself garments, hobby. If I make videos about it and earn a little bit of money, job. Again, not a good mindset to have. As I've talked about before, turning some of my hobbies into jobs or trying certain ways of making money from the things that I enjoyed doing in my free time didn't always work out. I recognize the issues behind this, and I have been working for years on allowing myself to have fun for the sake of having fun, to relax without feeling guilty, to waste time without worrying that I'll regret it. It's a slow process, but I'm getting there. Deep down inside, I think I always knew that I was too scared to pursue writing as a career. So I could have devoted time to it with the belief that it would become my job someday, in the same way that making stuff and making videos became my job. I could have chosen to believe that, but I know myself, and I know how I felt about my writing, and the reality is that it was never going to be a job because I am too precious with it. I am scared to let it go and let it out in the world. I am sitting like a writing dragon on my giant hoard of words and ideas and stories, letting them mold and rot and rust because I like them too much to risk getting real feedback, to risk being rejected, to risk being told it's not good, to risk finding out that I'm not a good writer or storyteller. One way to encourage myself to do anything is to turn it into something that will be shared. I need stakes, I need feedback, I need someone other than me to see it, and that's just who I am as a person. There are many people who can create for the joy of creating, who don't need it to go anywhere or be seen by anyone. It's just about getting it out of their head, doing the thing, making the thing, and being creative. And that's amazing. Those people are incredible. I wish I was like that. For me, I want things to be seen. I remember this stupid ass class that we had senior year of college that was literally just called Senior Studies. And it grouped together people in the same area of majors. So my class was made up of art, theater, and music students about to graduate and go off into the world to find some secondary career because very few people make it as artists. And at one point we had this whole discussion about what art is. I did not join in. By senior year, you'd think I'd be more willing to speak up in class, but no, I was still mostly silent, especially in mixed company like that. Someone said something along the lines of, art has to be seen to be art. Fuck that! No, it doesn't. What a ridiculous way to define art. And yet, while I don't at all agree with that, I still want my art to be seen. Or I still feel like my art has to be seen to have purpose. Or I feel like it needs promise of being seen for there to be reason for me to make it in the first place. Which makes me think maybe I never was or will be an artist of any kind. Not really. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Maybe I'm just an entertainer at heart. Art does not require an audience, but entertainment does. And I never desperately wanted to make art. I always desperately wanted to make entertainment. Yes, I love to learn new crafts and skills and make things with my hands. I love the craft of art itself. But I think the thing that fascinates me the most is people's reaction to art and craft and skill. The way human beings interact with creativity, both their own and other people's, is so interesting to me, which is why YouTube is great for me. Anything I make, I can share the process in a video, and I don't have to be good at it. It doesn't have to turn out well. I don't have to do it ever again if I don't want to, but I did the thing, I got to call it my job, I got to share it in some way, and I got to see people's reactions to it. Writing is my exception to this rule. And yet also, it's absolutely not. I don't share my writing. This channel is the first time that I have publicly shared and promoted my writing, though it's through the lens of performance. I've somewhat anonymously shared my writing before. I've had a few blogs where I wrote stuff. First, a really private one in high school. And by private, I just mean that I never told anyone about it or shared it at all, so it was on the internet where theoretically anyone could find it, but no one ever did because the internet is vast, and was vast even in 2009. I was more comfortable with the idea of total strangers who knew nothing about me reading what I had written than someone I knew reading it. And that's not really a thing that's changed. That kind of applies to everything I do, and that's also kind of a whole different discussion that we probably shouldn't get into today. Let's not tangent that hard. Actually, we're probably gonna tangent. Later on, when I wanted to be a travel blogger and then quickly realized that that wouldn't work, I did lightly promote my new blog. As in, I shared on Facebook sometimes, and a few people would go read what I wrote, and as they were all people who knew me in real life, that made me super duper uncomfortable. Also, the novels that I wrote in high school, at least the first one, I did have a few people proofread, or test read, or edit, or whatever you call it. I printed out 3 copies, I believe, and gave one to my sister, one to my best friend, and one to like an adult family friend. Like she was the mom of one of my younger sister's friends, but then our whole families were friends. One of those people that you call aunt even though they're not related to you. That also made me pretty uncomfortable, even though they all said nice things about it. The thing is, when it comes to my writing, I kind of don't believe anyone who praises it if they know me personally. Like, of course I want praise. I want it to be good and thought of as good. Who wouldn't want that? But I would kind of prefer it if anyone who knew me was just critical and all praise came from complete strangers. There's just something about getting praise from someone who knows me that feels very condescending or humoring or just automatically false. It feels to me like being a child who gets patted on the head because they did a finger painting. Oh, so cute. And again, this is hugely a personal issue with me. This is not what I actually think, or at least it's not what the logical side of my brain thinks. It's what the feral side of my brain feels. So I absolutely know that somebody who knows me can also give me genuine praise. But because there's that idea of like, it would be awkward to be critical because we're friends, or I just love everything you do because I'm so proud of you, because I'm related to you. I don't fully know how to tell the difference, and I hate the idea that I might be being fooled. A stranger has no reason to be nice to you. They will tell you what they really think, which can also be difficult because strangers can be mean sometimes. But hey, at least you know you're not being humored. So I rarely share my writing. I cling to it like it is my precious. I'm scared of people I know telling me it's good, and I'm scared of strangers telling me it's bad. And if I'm never gonna share it, then how can I convince myself to write in the first place? How can I convince myself to spend my precious hours creating stories and writings that will in turn be so precious that I'll never let anyone see them? I have no delusions of grandeur. Sometimes I think I need a few more delusions. I can't make myself believe that I'll have a career writing. So instead, I just don't write at all. Until this channel. This is me sharing my writing in some way really publicly for the first time. I know it's a video, it's me talking to the camera, so you may not immediately think of it as like, oh, that's writing. But it's writing. It's me writing out my stories and my thoughts and my feelings and then actually sharing them. Lightly terrifying, but also loads of fun. It's been really fulfilling and exciting, and I've loved having a reason to sit down and write. Except for some reason, I'm still having trouble getting it done. There's been lots of inspiration, but a lot less finishing. What more do I need? The writing is being shared. It's public, it has an audience, and on top of that, I'm getting paid a little bit too. Yet I still can't bring myself to devote a whole day to writing scripts, or I should really say finishing scripts. So again, I'm in the inspiration stage. I'm musing and I'm coming up with ideas and I'm expanding this pile of titles and ideas and paragraphs and almost full scripts. And yet I'm also sitting on top like the little writing dragon I am, hoarding all of it under me because I can't spend a full day just writing because it still doesn't feel like real work to me. It still feels frivolous. Like, if anything, I'm gonna take the time to write a script for this channel. That is what I am doing as I write this right now. What I was doing right then as I wrote this. I'm devoting the larger part of a day, still not a whole day, but a decent chunk of it, to writing scripts. Am I gonna do more than lightly glance at my fictional writing? Oh no! The thought of taking a day, or even just half a day, to expand one of the fictional stories that I've started and love so much, or even just write a new short story to get better at writing, is ludicrous to me. I've thought about starting a daily writing challenge. Every morning, spend an hour writing. See what comes of it. Sharpen your skills. Learn to create on a schedule. Become better at writing. But that would mean starting all of my real work an hour later every day. Can I afford that delay? Probably. Can I convince myself that I can afford that delay? Of course not. So I am taking a month off of posting videos on the main channel, the entire month of January. And I'll talk more about that on Friday on the main channel, so look out for that. But I figure if I take a whole month off of posting videos and just work on projects without a nearby deadline, I might be able to convince myself to take a few full days and just write. I might even convince myself to go on a little personal writing retreat. A writing road trip, because we know how well I do in the car when it comes to musing. But also a little sitting somewhere distraction-free and making myself write, getting it done. Even if that means spending a whole day doing absolutely nothing in an attempt to write. If I don't dedicate time to writing, I will never become a better writer. And if I'm not going to become a better writer, then I will never stop being a word hoarder who adds to their pile in all these little bits and yet has no reason for all the stuff they're hoarding. I don't want to hoard it anymore. I want to share it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. I want to have reason to write and to get better at writing. And I'm hoping that this channel will be that reason. Who knows where it will go from here, but you have to start, right? You have to start somewhere. Writing is a luxury, and I'm ready to be luxurious. Progress update? Tis coming along slowly these days. Here we go, I'm gonna try to be loud enough to sit in solemn silence on a dull, dark dock. Ow! Should have seen that coming. Close, but no cigar. I am asking for your opinion. Did you just hear my stomach? Oh. Dang it, I forgot my sewing. Please hold.